February might seem like a really quiet time of the year in the garden. However, there are plants that you can sow right now to give you lots of beautiful crops in the summer. In this video, we'll look at the seeds that you can sow in February, and I'll offer you some tips to get you extra success with your seeds this year. Before we dive into this video, if you haven't done so already, I'd love to have you along for my growing journey. Why not hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell down below? Let's start outdoors with some hardier vegetables that you can sow. Broad beans can be sown direct into your beds. However, I recommend that you pop them into a pot and you put some glass over the top of them to A, stop the rodents from going in and eating them, and B, keep them a little bit warmer so they'll germinate faster. Getting your broad beans started now means that they'll avoid things like the aphids and pests later in the season. I have more success with broad beans starting them off in the winter than I do in the early spring, and I highly recommend that you try this. Leeks are another vegetable that do need a longer growing season, and you can start them now. I would also recommend putting them under a little bit of glass just to give them a bit of heat, especially with the February weather being a bit up and down. Parsnips can be sown later in February, and I would recommend that you pop some frost fabric on top just to give them a little bit more warmth as well. Growing parsnips earlier in the season is a really good way to get bigger parsnips because they have more time to grow before you need them. However, you can sow your parsnips later in March if you need to. Broccoli, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, cauliflowers, all of your brassicas can be started now. They will take a little bit longer to come up, and I wouldn't sow them direct. I would do them in a greenhouse or a sheltered space, but you can do them outside. You don't need to grow them in your house. You can do them out somewhere. Just make sure they're covered over with a bit of frost fabric, or do them in a space that is a little bit sheltered. You could also try out a hotbed like the one I have over there, where I raise all of my seedlings in the late winter and the early spring. You can find out more about how I use hotbeds in this video over here. If you're enjoying this video so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the like button down below. It'll help to send this video out to more people who are looking to grow seeds in February. Thank you so much. You can also chit potatoes. Chitting is where you take your potato and you put it somewhere light and it will sprout. And this will help it to grow before it goes in the ground, and you'll get earlier potatoes by doing this. You don't have to chit your potatoes, and it doesn't make a huge difference, but it's sometimes just fun to do these things whilst you're waiting to grow. Aubergines can be sown indoors in February, and they need a long growing season, so it's best to start them as soon as you can. Pop them on a heat mat or a heated propagator and give them plenty of warmth. They will germinate, but they do take 2 weeks to come up, so don't panic if you don't see them straight away. Once they're up, they'll start growing much faster, and then when they get their second leaves, you can give them a little bit of tomato feed and keep topping that up each time. I'll make a further video about seed sowing tips, so watch out for that on my channel. Another crop you can sow at home are chilies. Chilies need a long, warm growing season too, so you can start these off the same way you did with your aubergines. They will take a couple of weeks to come up, but once they're up, they'll really start ramping away. You can start tomatoes later in February, and I do this in the 3rd week. I like to start them a little bit earlier so they have a longer growing season, and I try and rush through those tomatoes a bit earlier. If you don't have the space, light, or the heat to do so, I would wait until March to start getting your tomatoes in your pots. However, if you also have all of these requirements, then you can start them earlier and get a really nice early crop of tomatoes through. Those 3 crops are going to give you so much joy in the next couple of weeks, and you'll start seeing your propagator filling with all these lovely little seedlings. It's such a sight to behold, but please keep them in for as long as you can until about May or June. They don't need to go out yet, and really don't panic if you don't have the space to do them just yet. You can also buy aubergines and peppers later in the season, and your tomatoes can go in March. Sowing these seeds in February is really going to help maximise your crops this year. Broad beans are wonderful at this time of year, and you give them enough time and space to avoid those aphids and pests and get a really good crop. Aubergines need a long growing season, and so do chilies. Getting them in now is going to really help you, especially if you can add some extra light and heat to those seedlings. And if you're feeling a little daring and you've got enough space, then the tomatoes can be sown late in February to give you an earlier harvest. Remember, with all 3 of these plants, they need heat and they need light. Drop me a comment down below what seeds are you sowing this February. thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you found it useful, inspiring, and you take something away for your own growing journey. If you'd like to check out any more of my videos, you can find them over here. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!